The sharp bellow of cattle in distress pierced the pre-dawn stillness, a frantic chorus that jolted John Parker from his Texas porch as the first gray light crept over his 200-acre ranch. His rifle leaping to his hands as the coffee mug slipped from his grip, shattering on the weathered boards with a crash that echoed across the plains, the shards glinting faintly in the dim glow of a fading moon. He stood tall, his heart pounding like a war drum in his chest, the burn scar on his forearm throbbing as he squinted toward the eastern pasture, the lake's silver surface shimmering faintly beyond the horizon, the low rumble of hooves and the snap of whips cutting through the cool March air. After last night's midnight clash with Lang's blade wielders and Ethan's steadfast stand, John had hoped for a day to breathe, to solidify the family's fragile unity. But now the plains pulsed with chaos. The Ridge Watcher's blinking light from weeks past, no longer a distant threat, but a living pulse beating against his land, and he'd face it with the steel of his 54 years. He stormed across the yard of the barn, saddling Dusty with hands steady from decades of grit, the chestnut mare snorting nervously as he swung into the saddle, her ears twitching at the distant clamor, and he rode hard toward the pasture, rifle raised high, the wildflowers along the plains trembling in the early breeze, their colors muted in the half-light, his mind racing as he braced to confront the force that dared to steal his herd's heartbeat. The air was crisp and thick with the scent of dew and livestock as he spurred Dusty across the open ground. The eastern sky bruising with the promise of dawn, streaks of violet and gold bleeding into the gray, the lake's edge a distant shimmer reflecting the first rays, its calm surface at odds with the turmoil erupting ahead. He crested a low rise, reining in with a thud that sank his boots into the soft earth, his eyes narrowing as the scene unfolded like a war unfolding on his doorstep. 30 head of cattle, prime Angus, his live's blood, stampeding in a frantic circle, driven by 6 riders in dark gear, their faces shadowed by wide-brimmed hats, whips cracking like gunfire, ropes looping tight around the beasts' necks as they herded them toward a gap in the eastern fence, the barbed wire slashed wide, posts uprooted and scattered like fallen soldiers. Beyond them, a 7th figure stood atop the ridge, binoculars glinting in his hands, his silhouette sharp against the rising sun, a tracker, tall and lean, his duster coat flapping in the wind, a scoped rifle slung across his back, his presence a cold confirmation of the nights John had felt watched. Dust rose in choking clouds, the cattle lowing in panic, and John's blood ran cold, suspicion hardening into fury, his finger tightening on the trigger as he chambered around, the click swallowed by the herd's thunder, his breath steady despite the rage boiling in his veins. This was no small theft. Grayson's jail whispers had birthed a heist, and the ranch's pulse was bleeding out before his eyes. He spurred Dusty forward, rifle raised, the dust stinging his eyes and coating his Stetson as he charged down the slope, the wildflowers flattening under the mara's hooves, their petals torn free and swirling in his wake, the old war wound flaring with a sharp pang that shot through his leg with each jarring stride. The riders spotted him, their whips pausing mid-crack, and the tracker on the ridge lowered his binoculars, barking into a radio, his voice a faint growl over the wind as the crew shifted, 2 breaking off to meet John Heaton, their horses rearing, ropes swinging like lassos of death. "Back off, old man," one shouted, a wiry figure with a scarred cheek, his whip lashing out, the tip snapping inches from John's face, but John ducked low. Years of grit honed into instinct, and fired, a shot cracking through the dawn, the bullet burying into the dirt at the rider's feet, sending his horse skittering back with a panicked whinny, the man cursing as he fought to regain control. The second rider, a burly brute, charged, rope twirling, aiming to snag John's arm, but John swung Dusty aside, the mare pivoting sharp, and he slammed the rifle but into the man's shoulder, a thud echoing as the rope fell limp, the brute grunting as he slumped forward, clutching his collarbone. his horse bolting toward the ridge in a blind panic. "You're done," John roared, voice steel over the chaos, swinging the barrel toward the remaining four, who tightened their circle around the cattle, whips cracking faster, driving the herd toward the gap, dust rising like a wall between them. The tracker raised his rifle, scoping John, a glint of intent in the dawn light, and John rolled from the saddle, hitting the ground hard, grass crunching under his shoulders as a shot rang out. The bullet whizzing past his ear and splintering a fence post behind him, the echo rolling across the plains like a death knell. He sprang up, rifle steady, and fired back. The crack splitting the air, the bullet grazing the tracker's coat, sending him ducking behind a boulder with a snarl, his radio clattering free, static hissing as it hit the dirt. The cattle surged, hooves pounding, and John ran, boots sinking into the churned earth, tackling a rider from his horse, the man's whip flying as they crashed together, rolling in the dust. John's fist cracking the man's jaw with a snap that drew blood, the rider's hat tumbling free to reveal a young face twisted in pain before he slumped, dazed, into the grass. Another charged, horse rearing, but John dodged, grabbing the reins and yanking hard, the beast stumbling as the rider toppled, hitting the ground with a thud, his whip skittering away as he groaned, clutching a twisted ankle. The herd broke, scattering in the chaos, and John stood tall, rifle raised, towering over the fallen, the lake glowing gold beyond the dust as the sun climbed higher. "Calm off," he bellowed, aiming at the ridge, the tracker peering out, his rifle wavering. "You're losing. Talk, or I end it." The tracker shouted, voice ragged, "Hold, damn it, hold." The two remaining riders froze, ropes slack, their horses snorting, and John advanced, dust caking his hands and face, the plains pulsing beneath his boots. "Who's paying you?" he growled, kicking a fallen whip aside, pressing the barrel to the wiry rider's chest, the man's scar glinting with sweat. "Lang, Dallas Cash," the rider gasped, hands up, voice trembling. "Grayson's orders, jail call. Take the herd. Break you. Tracker's his man, hired gun." John's chest tightened, rage of furnace, the lake shimmering as the dust began to settle, the echo of hooves fading into the dawn. He hauled the rider up, shoving him toward the others, the tracker lowering his rifle, defeat in his stance. When headlights flared, Frank's truck roaring across the pasture, mud and grass spraying, Mary Ellen's mare beside it, shotgun gripped tight, Jake and Ethan piling out, Tom with rope, Sarah and Matt trailing, faces fierce in the rising light. "What's this?" Frank barked, pistol gleaming, eyeing the sprawl of riders, the scattered cattle lowing softly. John spat dust, voice rough, shoving the wiry rider forward. "Grayson's heist. Lang's tracker stole the herd. Stop him, Cole." Mary Ellen swung down, boots thudding, her voice steady. "Stop him good. Plains don't bleed easy." "John." Ethan charged, grabbing the burly rider, wrenching him up, voice raw. "You hit my dad's cattle?" "I'll—" John gripped his shoulder, steadying him, rifle close, the lake glowing below. "Enough, they're done," John said, tone steel over the breeze. "Ethan, round the herd. Jake, don't die. Hargrove's next." Jake tossed rope to Ethan, who nodded, his hands steady as he whistled Dusty over, mounting to corral the cattle, trust forging in each loop he threw, Tom binding the riders as Frank kicked a whip clear. Mary Ellen covering with her shotgun, Sarah calling Hargrove, Matt tracing the tracker's gear. "Dan, east pasture, 6 down, tracker caught, cattle theft, Grayson's hit," Sarah said, voice crackling over the phone. The sun rose higher, wildflowers emerging from the dust, when Hargrove's patrol car screeched in, lights cutting the dawn, deputies cuffing the riders. The tracker last, his duster torn, binoculars bagged. "What's the play, John?" Hargrove asked, badge glinting, the breeze tugging his hat. John stood tall, rifle slung, voice steady. "Lang's puppet, Grayson's pulse from jail. Herd safe, caught him." Hargrove nodded, grim. "Tracker's a pro, Lang's deep. They're booked, felony theft, conspiracy. Stay tight. Midday, bake the plains. The crew gathered, coffee steaming, Ethan firm, the map marked with the tracker's fall, cattle low and calm. Pull stopped, Frank said, pistol gleaming. But Grayson's heart beats. Watch it. John met Ethan's gaze, voice steel. You held. Herd's ours. Stay true. Across the ridge, a light blinked, binoculars then gone. Heat chamber around, the click loud. Ready for the plains, next pulse.